Here are the divorce papers. You can go ahead and file them at the city office right now if you want. But you won't, will you? You are jobless, after all. You would not last a day without me. My husband smirked as he shoved the signed divorce papers in my face. He had always mocked me for not having a job, and now he was using these papers as a way to keep me under his thumb. What a pathetic excuse for a man. I had spent years exhausting myself, raising our twins on my own, while he never once acknowledged my efforts. Instead of gratitude, he chose to control me, dangling the threat of divorce over my head like a leash, knowing full well that I had no other place to go with my parents living far away. I stared at the papers, my expression unreadable. That made him chuckle, a nasty sound dripping with arrogance. You'd be in serious trouble if I left you, wouldn't you? You have been getting too full of yourself lately, so consider this a little lesson. Do not ever talk back to me again. Understood? He started to pull the papers away, expecting me to back down like always. But before he could snatch them back, I grabbed them first. Then, flashing him my brightest, most cheerful smile, I said, "Thanks. I will go submit these right now." His smirk disappeared in an instant. I took the twins, packed a few things, and walked out of that house without looking back. As I headed to the city office, I muttered under my breath, "That is what you get for underestimating me." My name is Jessica, and I am 32 years old. Ever since I was young, I had always loved children. That passion led me to attend a vocational school specializing in child care right after high school. I earned my child care license and started working in a daycare center, where I found true fulfillment in my career. It was not always easy. Working with kids took patience and energy, but I knew this was what I was meant to do. After more than a decade in the field, I had built a strong reputation. My colleagues depended on me, and the parents trusted me with their children. On the surface, my life seemed perfect. But there was one thing that weighed on me. While my friends were settling down, getting married, and starting families of their own, I had barely dated. My job kept me busy, and I never gave relationships much thought before. But seeing everyone around me moving forward made me wonder, was I falling behind? Had I made the wrong choices? Right when these thoughts started creeping into my mind, I got a call from Rachel, my best friend from high school. Rachel was someone I had always admired. She was smart, ambitious, and worked at a big trading company. On top of that, she was effortlessly beautiful, one of those people who seem to have it all. "Jessica, it has been ages. How have you been? Did you hear? Samantha is getting married. I just got the wedding invite." "Are you going?" Samantha had been one of our classmates back in high school. "Yeah, of course, I will be there," I replied, though I could not keep the envy from creeping into my voice. Rachel must have picked up on it. "Oh, so are you thinking about marriage now? I always thought you were too focused on your career to care about relationships." "Of course, I want to get married," I admitted. "I want kids of my own one day. But I never had the chance to meet anyone. My last real relationship? I cannot even remember when that was." There was a pause on the line as Rachel seemed to think something over. Then, suddenly, she said, "Then why do you not come to a dinner party I will organize? I will gather some great single guys and girls, and we can just have a fun night out. I am looking for a boyfriend, too, so it will be perfect." The idea caught me off guard. "Really? You would do that for me? But are you sure? You are always so busy with work. I do not want to trouble you." It was an amazing opportunity, but I knew how packed Rachel's schedule was. "Do not be silly. You are my best friend." "It is my pleasure," she said with a laugh. Grateful beyond words, I accepted her offer. When the day of the dinner party arrived, I made sure to dress up as nicely as I could. The venue was buzzing with energy when I got there, filled with the people Rachel had invited. Being the social butterfly that she was, she had connections with all kinds of people, thanks to her job. One of them was Ethan, her older brother. Ethan was 3 years older than us, and I vaguely remembered him from high school. But when I saw him that night, I almost did not recognize him. His boyish looks had matured into something much more striking. "Jessica, it has been a while," he greeted me. I blinked, completely thrown off. "Huh?" Uh, I stammered, having no idea who he was. Not the best reaction, but he did not seem to mind. With an amused smile, he introduced himself. "You probably do not remember me. It has been a long time. I am Rachel's brother, Ethan. We have met before." The moment he said it, the memories clicked into place. "Oh, Ethan, I am so sorry. I did not recognize you. It really has been a long time." We quickly fell into a comfortable conversation, catching up on old times. "You were already beautiful back in high school, but you have become even more stunning," he said smoothly. "So what do you do for work?" "I am a child care worker. I love kids." "That is amazing," he said, sounding genuinely impressed. I learned that Ethan worked at the same trading company as Rachel. On weekends, he was into motorcycles and often took road trips on his bike. But what stood out the most was how attentive he was. He made sure my drink was never empty, and he listened intently to everything I said. Drawn to his mature and considerate nature, I asked for his contact information before the night was over. And right after the party, I sent him a message. One date led to another, and before I knew it, we were officially together. Rachel was thrilled when she found out, and since our jobs were close to each other, Ethan and I soon decided to move in together. Not long after that, I found out I was pregnant. "What?" Ethan's eyes widened in shock, his expression almost comical. "Yeah, I haven't been to the doctor yet, but I took a test, and it was positive." I could feel my face heating up with excitement. My heart was practically soaring. "Wow, thank you." Then, suddenly, with a huge smile, he said, "I know this is a little out of order, but Jessica, will you marry me?" His proposal caught me completely off guard. But of course, my answer was an immediate yes. I had never been the type to rush into relationships, but things with Ethan moved fast from the very start. We had already introduced each other to our parents when we moved in together, but now we made another visit to announce both the pregnancy and our upcoming marriage. Our families were thrilled, showering us with congratulations, and I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. Soon after, I scheduled my first ultrasound appointment. As I lay there, watching the monitor, the doctor's voice took me by surprise. "Well, well, it looks like you're carrying two little ones." "Wait, what?" I sat up, my mouth hanging open. "Twins." I had just assumed I was pregnant with one baby, and now my mind was racing with thoughts of how much our lives were about to change. But more than anything, I was overjoyed. Two babies. I could hardly believe it. That night, as soon as Ethan came home from work, I rushed to tell him the news. "Twins!" His face went pale. "Are we going to be okay?" "The cost, the effort, it's all going to be doubled, right? I've heard raising twins is insanely hard." I could hear the worry in his voice, but I just smiled. "Yeah, but the happiness will be doubled too, don't you think?" "I'm so excited." Ethan hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I guess that's true. If you want to have them, that's fine." I froze for a second. If you want to have them. That was not the reaction I had hoped for. I had wanted him to be just as excited as I was. But I brushed it off, convincing myself that he was just overwhelmed. Surely, once he saw their little faces, all his doubts would disappear. I kept working at the daycare center as my belly grew, but eventually, when it became too difficult, I made the tough decision to resign. Child care had always been my passion, and I promised myself I would return once the babies were older. Time passed, and finally, the big day arrived. I gave birth to a healthy baby boy and girl. The moment Ethan held him in his arms, his eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. You did amazing." Seeing him take turns holding the babies so tenderly, I felt relieved. Even though he had seemed unsure at first, now that they were here, it looked like his worries had been replaced by pure joy. During my hospital stay, Rachel came to visit. "Oh my God, these are my niece and nephew. They're adorable." She gushed, tears glistening in her eyes. Ethan also came by often, and for those few days, I felt hopeful about our future. We would be a happy family of 4. Or so I thought. The reality of having twins hit hard the moment we got home. Their cries filled the house day and night, overlapping each other, never giving me a moment to rest. On the third night, just as I was changing their diapers and trying to soothe them, Ethan snapped. "Jesus, they're so damn loud. I can't sleep. Make them shut up." His voice cut through the room like a whip. I hurried to feed them, trying to calm them down, but newborns do not stop crying so easily. And with twins, as soon as one started, the other quickly followed. "If you have such a problem with it, why don't you help? You could at least hold them." Ethan scoffed. "Help? Why should I? You're the one who wanted twins, remember? I didn't sign up for this noise. I have work tomorrow, and I can't afford to be sleep deprived. Unlike you, I actually have a job. I'm one of the top employees in my department. What happens if this affects my performance?" I could not believe what I was hearing. "You cried when they were born. You were so happy. What changed?" He snorted. "Yeah, I was emotional at the hospital. They were quiet and cute. But now, they're just screaming nonstop. I can't find them cute like this. Maybe I will when they finally stop crying." I stared at him, stunned. "Are you serious? They're babies. What did you expect?" The twins wailed even louder, their cries overlapping into one chaotic mess. Ethan's face twisted in frustration. "Shut up! Are you two monsters or something? How can you cry this much? I can't take this anymore. I need sleep." He stormed off, grabbed a small bag, and stuffed a few things inside. "I'm going to a hotel. See you." And with that, he walked out the door. I stood there, holding both babies in my arms, staring at the spot where he had just been. This cannot be real. Up until now, Ethan had always been composed, always so gentlemanly. He had never once raised his voice at me. But now he was shouting, throwing insults, running away like a coward. Tears welled up in my eyes, but just as they started falling, the twins, almost as if they sensed my sadness, suddenly quieted down. For a moment, the house was silent. I took a deep breath. No, this was not the time to cry. I have to be strong for them. That was the moment I made up my mind. No matter what, I would take care of them. Ethan barely came home after that. Every night, I would receive a short, impersonal text. "Not coming home today. Staying at a hotel." It was the same message, over and over. With both our parents living far away, I had no one to turn to for help. My sleepless nights stretched on endlessly. I had spent years working in child care. I had always loved kids. But caring for 2 newborns, completely alone? It was nothing like I had imagined. Taking care of newborn twins on my own was beyond exhausting. There were moments when I considered reaching out to Rachel for help, but she was a dedicated career woman with a packed schedule. I did not want to burden her. Meanwhile, Ethan barely came home. And when he did, all he did was complain about the house, about the kids, about me. He never showed a shred of affection for our twins. The only thing he seemed to care about was making sure I knew how miserable I was making his life. Then, one afternoon, I got a text from him. Coming home today. Obviously, have dinner ready. I'm in the mood for Chinese. Just like that, as if he had never abandoned us for weeks. That night, as soon as he stepped into the living room, he started yelling, "What the hell is this mess? This place looks like a damn pigsty. Aren't you supposed to be a housewife? Do your job properly." I barely glanced at him as I rocked one of the twins in my arms. Taking care of our children comes first. The house being messy is just part of the deal. Maybe if there was another adult helping, we could keep up with the chores too. I said it with a smile, but there was no mistaking the sarcasm in my voice. Ethan clicked his tongue. TCH. Just hurry up and make dinner. I'm tired and starving. Wash your hands first. I replied, keeping my tone calm. With heavy footsteps, he stomped toward the sink. Meanwhile, I set the table, placing down the pre-made side dishes I had picked up from the store. The twins had been fussy all day, and I simply had not had time to cook. I knew Ethan would complain, but there was no way around it. Sure enough, when he sat down and saw the food, his temper flared. What the hell is this? Store-bought food? You didn't even cook? And where's the Chinese food I asked for? I let out a tired sigh. I didn't have time to cook today, and the supermarket didn't have Chinese food in their deli section. Ethan scoffed. Didn't have time? What a joke. You're unemployed. What could you possibly be so busy with? Your mother always made homemade meals while raising kids. She never used store-bought garbage like this. I clenched my jaw. Your mother is a wonderful woman, but she didn't raise twins by herself. Truthfully, I had always liked my in-laws. My mother-in-law had been nothing but kind to me, and my father-in-law was the type of man who actually helped his wife with housework. I had seen it myself whenever we visited. They had always worked as a team. And yet here was Ethan, expecting me to do everything alone. If you're going to compare me to your mother, then maybe you should start acting like your father. That hit a nerve. His face darkened. Do not talk back to me, he sneered. You're a failure as both a wife and a mother. I exhaled sharply, forcing myself to stay calm. Then how about you come home every day and help out? If you actually did something, the house would be cleaner and dinner would be homemade. But instead of helping, all you do is complain. Ethan crossed his arms, completely unmoved. I can't help. I have a job, Jessica. Unlike you, I actually contribute to this household. Housework and childcare are a woman's job. You're just a jobless freeloader. You need me. You'd never survive without me, so you should start showing some gratitude. Then, suddenly, a slow, wicked grin spread across his face, as if he had just thought of something. Without another word, he turned and walked into the bedroom. I frowned. What is he up to now? Curious, I followed and peeked inside, just in time to see him rummaging through the shelves. A moment later, he pulled out a sheet of paper. Found it. Smirking, he marched back toward me and held it out. I stared at it. Divorce papers. His section was already filled out. Ethan chuckled darkly. Go ahead. Try submitting them. Oh wait, you can't, can you? His voice dripped with mockery. You're unemployed. You'd be helpless without me. Let this be a lesson. Don't ever talk back to me again. He started to pull the papers away, expecting me to fold. But instead, I snatched them right out of his hands. Then, with my brightest, most cheerful smile, I said, "Thanks. I'll go file these right now." Ethan's smirk vanished. As he stood there, frozen in disbelief, I calmly filled out my section. Then, without another word, I packed up the twins and walked out. I did exactly what I said I would do. I went straight to the city office and submitted the divorce papers. Just like that, my marriage to Ethan was officially over. After leaving the office, I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Hello? Jessica? What's wrong?" Rachel's voice was immediately filled with concern. "Actually, I just divorced Ethan." I told her everything. Without hesitation, she offered to let me stay at her place for a while. The next afternoon, my phone rang again. "Ethan." I let it ring a few times before picking up. "Hey, where the hell are you? Why haven't you come home?" His voice was already raised. "You're broke and unemployed. You have nowhere to go. Where do you think you're running off to?" I sighed, already tired of his nonsense. "First of all, stop shouting. Can you speak like a normal human being?" I paused for a beat before adding, "And second of all, I'm not coming home." "We're divorced, remember? Though I will stop by a few times to pick up my things." There was a long silence. Then his voice came back, laced with panic. "Wait, you actually filed those papers? You can't be serious. You won't survive without me. What the hell are you thinking, you idiot?" I could practically hear him foaming at the mouth on the other end of the line. At that moment, I decided to drop the truth on him. "Actually, I do have a job." That shut him up. "What?" he finally spat. "Doing what?" "I'm a freelance writer. I specialize in child care topics." His breath hitched. "A writer?" "Yep. And, funnily enough, being a mother of twins has actually boosted my career. It's helped me gain attention, and thankfully, I make enough to support myself just fine." In reality, I had started working as a freelance writer right after quitting my daycare job. My experience in child care, combined with my first-hand journey of twin pregnancy, had made my articles popular from the start. And after giving birth, my candid writing about raising twins had resonated with even more people. What Ethan never knew was that I had been securing my independence all along. And now he was about to realize that I did not need him. Not then. Not now. Not ever. Thanks to my writing, I had gained even more attention, and as a result, I was fortunate to have a stable income. Ethan, on the other hand, was struggling to process what I had just told him. "Wait, since when? When did you start doing that?" he asked, his voice laced with shock. I smirked, enjoying how the truth had caught him off guard. "Back when I was working in child care, I never imagined I had any talent as a writer. But you never really know what you're capable of until you try, right? Turns out, I love both writing and drawing." And honestly, writing has been a great outlet for me while raising the twins. The truth was, the work fit perfectly into my life. The twins still had erratic sleep schedules, but I had learned to work efficiently in short bursts, focusing intensely whenever I had the chance. Ethan scoffed. "So you weren't actually unemployed? And you're seriously going through with this divorce?" "Going through with it?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "I already did. I submitted the divorce papers yesterday." "Didn't you hear me say that earlier? Were you even listening?" Ethan's voice shot up in anger. "This is ridiculous. I never agreed to divorce you. You just went ahead and filed the papers without my consent. That's completely unfair." I let out a tired sigh. "What are you even talking about? You signed the papers yourself. It's a pretty big stretch to say you didn't agree to a divorce when your own signature is on them." He quickly tried to backtrack. That was just supposed to be a warning. You were getting too full of yourself, and I wanted to put you in your place. I never thought you'd actually submit them. Now, go to the city office and tell them it was a mistake. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, so you actually didn't want to divorce me? Wow, I had no idea. I figured you wanted to be free to marry your mistress. Ethan's breath hitched. For the first time in this conversation, he went completely silent. I smirked. Oh, what happened to all that energy from earlier? What the hell are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. His voice was forced, defensive. Come on, Ethan. Do you really think I don't know? It's pointless to deny it. I have proof. Solid proof. Photos of you, arm in arm with a young woman, walking into hotels together. His breath audibly caught. You have photos? I could hear the panic in his voice now. Yes. And you know what? You're pathetic. A man who doesn't lift a finger to help with his own children, who constantly yells, who abandons his family, and on top of all that, cheats. What would you call someone like that, Ethan? Because to me, that sounds like a worthless excuse for a man. I had meant to keep my tone calm, but the rage I had bottled up for months finally slipped through. Ethan bristled. How dare you say that to me? Take it back? Why? It's the truth. What, does it hurt to hear the facts? Just then, Rachel, who had been sitting beside me the entire time, spoke up. I had kept the phone on speaker the whole time, and she had been silently listening. Ethan. It's me. The line went dead silent for a second. Then, Rachel? What the hell? Wait, Jessica's at your place? Yeah, she's staying with me. And let me tell you something. She's not coming back. You two are strangers now. You're officially divorced, Ethan. Get that through your head. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Rachel continued, her tone laced with disgust. I always thought you were an okay guy, but after everything Jessica told me, I can't even look at you the same way. You're awful. Truly awful. When I had first come back from the hospital, I had hesitated to contact Rachel. I knew how busy she was with work, and I did not want to bother her with my problems. But as time went on and Ethan's behavior only got worse, I had reached my emotional limit. When Rachel eventually reached out to check on me, I broke down and told her everything. The verbal abuse, his refusal to help with the kids, his constant absences, and most of all, my gut feeling that he was cheating. Ethan had always claimed he was staying at hotels because the twins were too loud. But I had a feeling he was not staying there alone. It was just a gut instinct, women's intuition, maybe, but something about the way he changed overnight, the way he had started getting angry so easily, it did not add up. Rachel had taken one look at me and said, I'll find out. Since she and Ethan worked at the same company, she had access to his schedule. Keeping an eye on him was easy. And as expected, it didn't take long before she caught him red-handed. Rachel had snapped photos of him entering a hotel with a young female employee. Over and over again. I wanted to confront him right away, she had told me. But I waited until you were ready. As soon as Ethan had handed me those signed divorce papers, I knew the time was right. So I had gone through with it. Now, Ethan was shouting into the phone. Rachel, what the hell? How could you spy on me? What kind of sister does that? You're trying to ruin me. Rachel let out a dry laugh. And what kind of brother does this? I regret ever introducing you to Jessica. But you know what? She doesn't regret marrying you. You know why? Because at least she got the twins out of it. So at least something good came from you. That made me smile. It was true. Ethan had been a nightmare, but if I had never married him, I never would have met my babies. And for that, I had no regrets. Rachel's voice turned cold. I don't want to think of you as my brother anymore. You made my best friend suffer. And worse, you showed no love for my niece and nephew. You're disgusting. Ethan groaned in frustration. Why the hell am I getting all the blame? I took that as my cue to deliver the final blow. Ethan, be prepared. You're going to be paying for this. Division of assets and compensation for adultery. There was a long, tense silence. Then Ethan exploded. What? Compensation? You're actually going to take money from me? I kept my tone even. Of course. And since we know who your mistress is, thanks to Rachel, I'll be claiming compensation from her too. Wait. Hold on. Please don't do that. She's a new employee. She doesn't know any better. It would be cruel to demand money from her. I felt a headache coming on. Cruel? I repeated, rubbing my temples. Ethan, it's just the natural consequence of having an affair with a married man. He had no response to that, because deep down, he knew I was right. I let out a dry chuckle. If you feel that bad for her, why don't you pay her share of the compensation? I wouldn't mind that. Ethan immediately started stammering. Well, I've spent quite a bit of money on my motorcycles, so I don't exactly have much in savings right now. Please, just don't go through with this. I'm begging you. I'll even apologize. Tired of his pathetic act, I cut him off coldly. Apologize? Even now, you still sound so damn condescending. I exhaled sharply. I'm not dropping the compensation claim, and your lack of savings is none of my concern. You will pay. End of discussion. Come on. After I begged you so much, you're still not willing to let it go? No, I'm not, I said simply. In fact, I'm already in the process of hiring a lawyer. You'll be hearing from them soon. Goodbye, Ethan. And with that, I hung up. As promised, I pursued compensation claims against both Ethan and his mistress. His mistress, to my surprise, paid up immediately, not a single argument, not a single complaint. Then, as if trying to erase her mistake, she dumped Ethan, quit her job, and moved back to her hometown. Apparently, her parents had covered the compensation for her. But when they found out the reason she needed the money, that she had been having an affair with a married man, they were furious. As punishment, they forced her to stay at home and help out on the family farm. As for Ethan, he was broke. After years of blowing all his money on his precious motorcycles, he had almost nothing left in his savings. When he tried to borrow money from his parents, he quickly realized that Rachel had already told them everything. They didn't give him a single cent. Instead, they immediately kicked him out of their house. A few days later, his mother called me, her voice filled with regret. Jessica, we are so sorry about our foolish son. Please don't hold this against us. Truthfully, I didn't. My in-laws had always been kind to me, and I knew none of this was their fault. I don't blame you, I told them honestly. And I'd still love for you to be in the twins' lives. I'll visit with them sometime. Hearing that, my mother-in-law started crying. Thank you. That means the world to us. Meanwhile, Ethan's life continued to spiral. After Rachel exposed his lies to their coworkers, his carefully crafted image as a devoted father shattered instantly. People who had once admired him started avoiding him. The shame was unbearable, and before long, he had no choice but to resign. No job. No money. No way to pay compensation. And yet, the nerve of this man, he actually had the audacity to call me. Jessica, listen. I lost my job, so I have nothing. I can't pay the compensation. So let's get back together. I nearly dropped my phone. Excuse me? We could rebuild our family. I swear, this time I'll do it right. I'll be a good husband, a good father. What do you think? If we got back together, the compensation claim would disappear, right? I let out a humorless laugh. Ethan, let me get this straight. You're saying that because you have no money, I should just magically forgive everything and take you back? That's your big plan? Jessica, please, he whined. You're all I have left. I love you. We can fix this. Oh, really? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Then tell me, if you're so desperate to fix things, why is it that your mistress, who is over 10 years younger than you, managed to pay her share of the compensation immediately, while you haven't paid a single dollar? There was a long pause. Then, in a small, pitiful voice, he mumbled, Don't be so harsh. I rolled my eyes. Ethan, this is creepy and pathetic. Don't ever call me again. And make sure you pay the compensation properly. Goodbye. Before he could respond, I blocked his number. Later, Rachel gave me an update on Ethan's situation. With nowhere else to go, he had gone crawling back to his parents' house. At first, they refused to let him in, but after he literally got on his knees and begged, they eventually allowed him to stay. Of course, they didn't let him off easy. His father arranged for him to live in the dormitory of a factory where one of his acquaintances worked. And now, he was stuck doing hard manual labor every day, all so he could finally start paying off his debt. Poetic justice, really. As for me, after spending some time at Rachel's house, I decided to return to my parents' home. The moment I walked through the door, they welcomed me and the twins with open arms. They adored their grandchildren, showering them with love, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a true sense of peace. Raising my babies with my parents by my side, continuing my work as a child care writer, I was happy. And when the twins got older, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I would return to my first passion. I would go back to working in child care. But for now, I was enjoying every moment of my new life, free, independent, and surrounded by the only family that truly mattered.